always been the fire, the refiner. Oh, if the altar's where you meet us, take me there, take me there. What you need is just an offering. It's right here, my life is here, and I'll be a living sacrifice for you. You're refined, the refiner. I wanna be consumed, I wanna be tried by fire. Purified, you take whatever you desire. Yeah. Lord, here's my life, I wanna be tried by fire. Purified, you take whatever you desire. Lord, here's my life. Yeah.
If your glory wants to come, let it fall. We want it all. Your fire is consuming. Fill this place, set it ablaze, and I'll be a living sacrifice for you. You're refined, the refiner. I wanna be consumed, I wanna be tried by fire.
Purified, you take whatever you desire. Lord, here's my life, I wanna be tried by fire. Purified, you take whatever you desire. Lord, here's my life.
Greetings and welcome again to our Saturday night church with First United Methodist Church of Taylor, Texas. My name is Sela, Finau, and I'll be your host this evening.
And I'm Tiffany Charles. Welcome again.
Yes, and today we have a very special guest with us, as you can see here, Mr. Brandt Rydell. He is currently the mayor of Taylor, and as many of you know, he is currently on the ballot running for District 3 here in Taylor. And we wanted to have a conversation with Mr. Rydell on the passage of John 10, talking about the Good Shepherd. And being a mayor of Taylor, he is the main shepherd for the city of Taylor. So before we get into our discussion, we want to give an opportunity to Mr. Rydell, and also we want to ask him about his upbringing. Was there any faith, do you have a faith background or faith tradition that you could share with us?
Sure. Well, I'm Brandt Rydell, and I'm mayor of the city of Taylor, the District 3 Council representative. And even though I'm mayor of Taylor, I like to tell folks that I kind of grown up with a foot in Taylor and a foot in Finau. My ancestors immigrated to this area back in the late 1800s. And as such, they were Swedish immigrants, Swedish Lutheran immigrants, and they kind of followed the Swedish immigration path to Central Texas. And so my family has had a long tradition in the Finau Lutheran Church, of which my family is still a member. And in fact, my daughters will be baptized here in a couple of weeks.
Oh, that's good.
So I grew up in Finau, right at the end of Church Street. And so I passed my church on the way to elementary school every day,
okay.
and so the church was integral to our family growing up there. And as I mentioned, through our family history dating back to the late 1800s.
I see. That's great. So would it be correct to say that your faith plays a role in your decision making as mayor of Taylor?
Well, I'm guided by a lot of different things, but certainly the Judeo-Christian ethic that I grew up in is certainly informative.
Okay. Well, Mr. Rydell,
last week in our last Saturday night church episode, we were talking about being good shepherds and going beyond our church walls and out into the community. And we'd like suggestions from you as to how not only our church, but any church group in Taylor and faith community in Taylor can help the city and partner with the city to be good shepherds.
Well, there's a few different things that come to mind, and one thing that I've been emphasizing to people as I've been out and about here recently is I'm not sure everybody is appreciative of the explosive growth that Taylor is about to experience. I mean, we're seeing that already, and people who've lived in Taylor a long time have heard that Taylor's about to grow, that next wave is going to happen. And 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, it didn't really happen. So it's almost like crying wolf. But I'm here to tell you, it's about to happen, and it's going to hit hard. So we're going to see just an exponential growth in Taylor. That means a lot of new people are going to be in Taylor. And one of the things that I love about Taylor, I know so many people love about our community, it has that small town feel. There's this connectedness that is a sense of belonging, a sense of place. And there's a danger in us losing that connection as we kind of grow to a larger community and with less connection, one to the history of the town and just the community at large. Because you see too often, particularly in this modern age, people tend to be a little more withdrawn and insular and not as connected. Social media notwithstanding, but I don't find that to be true connection. I think one role that communities of faith can play in our community at large is to kind of help with that connection and that sense of belonging. That as we have more people moving to Taylor, because institutions like the church and our schools are really ingrained people into the fabric of Taylor. And I think that's one aspect of the churches I think could be particularly integral in welcoming, accepting folks as they move to Taylor. And it'd be great if there was some relationship between our local realtors organization and our local churches, where we can kind of work together as folks are moving to town to identify and to have that outreach for those who are looking for a connection and looking for a new community of faith here in Taylor. Because I think that works on so many levels, but as someone who, as mayor of the city of Taylor, I think that just helps pull people into the community at large, make them feel connected, and again, that sense of belonging. And I think another aspect, and I said there were many things that came to mind about how the church and the city can work together to go to the community. I know one thing that an issue that has kind of risen to the front of people's consciousness in Taylor in recent years is our homeless situation.
Oh, yes.
Which we, it's not unique to Taylor. It's something that we struggle with as a society. And certainly, I think we've seen some increasing instances of more visible, perhaps more aggressive homeless in Taylor. But we know there's a lot of the unseen homeless that we have in our community as well. And I get the question as mayor a lot, Mayor, what are you going to do about the homeless situation? Or what is the city council, what's the city going to do? Well, as we all appreciate, this is a huge, complicated issue. And there is a role for city government to play in that, but we need a lot of partners in this. And I think our local churches are an essential partnership for the city of Taylor, in addition to mental health professionals and other nonprofits. Again, I go back to my upbringing in a Christian church, and to me, reaching out to the homeless and the needy, those who are most in need, I mean, that is central to the teachings of Jesus. And to the extent that we could work with our local churches and other partners on how we can all come together to better address the situation. I know there's no secret formula to resolving this, but I think we can all do a better job of attending
absolutely. I definitely do believe that it is the call and mission of the church to reach out to those who are in need. But many times we as a church do not know how. How do we involve ourselves or engage ourselves in not just supporting or enabling a person or a family to continue to be homeless, but rather getting down to the foundation or the roots of the issue.
Yes.
How can we partner with other folks who are able to help, like the city? But I believe that the church, and I believe many churches here in Taylor or other faith traditions would like to help, but we need to know how,
Yes.
or what are the process.
And you raise a good point, because homelessness is really a continuum. And when you see someone out on the street, they're one of the, this started much further back with issues from their childhood, maybe mental health issues,
Yes.
financial issues, family issues, and just housing instability issues. And as you said, there's ways to catch people on this continuum. And I think we all have a role to play working together to be able to, as best we can, head off these issues earlier, because
Right.
once you get on this end, it's very, very difficult.
Very difficult, yes.
We all struggle.
Yes. Yes. Tiffany and I were in Austin a couple of days ago, and we saw the homeless out on the highway, just pitching a tent anywhere that they can. And it's an unfortunate situation to see, and we want to be able to help situations like that. And we are starting to see more of that here in Taylor, but we would like to help. So we don't know whether it's safe to approach the individual or the family and say, how can we help you? So we're concerned about, we want to help, but we also concerned about safety, not only for ourselves, but the people in the area.
Does the city have any other plans moving forward? I mean, I know we have Shepherd's Heart here in Taylor that all the local churches help pitch out with, but are there any plans in the future for other programs to help out the community that you could think of?
The community at large?
In Taylor, yes.
Are we talking about homelessness or?
Those in need, not necessarily homeless, but anybody in need as well.
Well,
People on the verge of homelessness.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, we're looking at housing instability. That's one of the issues that came out of the task force regarding homelessness that the city helped facilitate. Again, it was bringing together sort of a coalition of partners to discuss this issue. And coming out of that, while it was characterized as a task force on homelessness, the result of that was recommendations on addressing housing instability in Taylor. So there's a number of things the city's looking at right now in terms of partnering with the Taylor Housing Authority and Habitat for Humanity. We're looking to develop a model housing development with housings of various types, from probably like tiny home structures, a little bit larger, and kind of do it as a pilot program or test case to see how viable. Putting many units on a smaller footprint of property, maybe with common area, and which there's examples of this around the country, indeed around the world, but you don't really see it in Taylor or even Central Texas. So that's something that we're looking to implement, just kind of study and see how that works, and with the idea that if it does prove successful and viable, there may be private development that comes in that would like to kind of take that model and carry it forward. Again, this is for folks. This is not like a homeless village. This is people who are just looking for affordable housing, because as we're seeing, more and more people are just getting priced out housing. Even here in Taylor, when I joined the council 9 years ago, and we talked about affordable housing, the predominant response I get is people, this is Taylor. I mean, housing's affordable by definition in Taylor. This is affordable housing. That's why people are moving here from Austin. Well, that's not the case anymore.
Anything is more affordable than Austin.
Exactly.
Yes.
But it's I moved here 15 years ago, and the difference is pretty dramatic in terms of what the housing market is like now compared to then. And if I was a young person, was trying to make my start in life, it would just be very difficult to think about homeownership this time with the price points that we were seeing. So again, this pilot project that we're looking at, it's smaller homes, more affordable homes that maybe these folks who otherwise wouldn't be able to afford a house could get into a unit like that, and then in time move up the housing chain. But that's one of the things that we're excited about pursuing.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
Oh, sure.
Now, is that similar to the 3D homes that they're building communities in Austin? I saw something on PBS.
Yeah, no, I'm not familiar with the 3D homes, but I think this will be a variety of housing types, and I'm just excited to see how it plays out. We're still in early stages of it right now. In fact, I think this was presented a few months ago as an idea, and our development services area is working with Habitat for Humanity and the Housing Authority. But it's one of those things that could be just really cool for Taylor, and something that Taylor's kind of taking a lead in. And it's an incremental step. I mean, if it works out, great, kind of build on it. If not, it's like, well, okay, let's pivot and figure out what another direction may be.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else that you want to share with the people of Taylor?
Well, I appreciate you having me on to talk about the Good Shepherd, and it has been a very difficult year to be a shepherd in any respect, whether it's in your own family or for a city like Taylor. It has been a very tough year, but I'm just so optimistic now as more people are getting vaccinated and we're learning more about the virus, and we're kind of coming out and getting back and seeing more and more glimpses of what we recalled pre-March 2020. With the vibrancy and vitality that's kind of baked into Taylor already, which even during a pandemic, we saw a lot of successes, a lot of growth. Coming out of this, it's going to take off, and it's going to be a very exciting time for Taylor. There's just a world of opportunities in this community, and I'm anxious to see what the coming months and years will hold, and I think our local churches will play an integral role in that.
Okay, thank you. Now, before you go, can I say a prayer for you?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Gracious God, we give you thanks for this day that you have blessed us with. We give you thanks, God, for Brandt Rydell and his leadership in the city of Taylor. We pray, God, that you help Mr. Rydell continue to be a good shepherd for the city. And we pray for the people of Taylor. In your son's name, Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen. Amen. All right, thank you so much. We appreciate you. Yes.
Thank you for
All right,
having me.
and good luck.
Yes.
So, yes, good luck on Saturday.
All right, so we're continuing on with our conversation this afternoon. We have Mr. Mitchell Drummond. Many of you know here in Taylor, he is the city council member representing District 2. And we wanted to have a conversation with Mr. Drummond to ask him several questions, just as we did with Mr. Rydell earlier. But first, we want to give an opportunity to Mr. Drummond if he would like to share about his faith tradition, his upbringing, and tell us about you, Mitch.
Okay,
please.
so initially I was baptized in the Methodist Church right here on 10th Street.
Oh,
And
I did not know that.
yes, so I was born here in Taylor. And so when we were Methodist, and then I moved to Austin, and I had a stepmother, and we were a Nazarene for a while, and then we were Assembly of God, and then we were Baptist, and I came back to Taylor back in '77, and we were Lutheran, and we were Baptist, and then I was a Methodist.
Look at that, he went in a circle.
Yes, I ended up Methodist, yes.
but he's always in the Jesus story. Somewhere in there.
Somewhere in there, that's right.
Yes.
Jesus was always there.
Yeah. But Mr. Drummond, we have been talking about John 10, the passage that talks about being a good shepherd. And you being a city council member, you're representing District 2. You are a shepherd for the city of Taylor. So tell us how are you a good shepherd for the city of Taylor?
How am I a good shepherd?
For the people.
Well, you know, we're the ones that determine the tax rate and what we pay for the water and the wastewater, and what streets are fixed, and what gets mowed, just everything that goes on in this town. We take care of that at some point. So, this year, we're looking at property increases, and we're worried that taxes will be going up. So, I'm really interested in looking at a cap on over 65 this year. I think it's time,
Yes.
and I don't know if we can make the numbers work. But we're going to have that discussion. But I mean, it's just things like that. We're trying. I feel like that our senior citizens that are living here, they're going to get priced out of town. And these are our anchors in the community. They're the anchors. They're a big part of our neighborhoods. They know the history.
Yes.
I mean, that's we lose them, we've lost a lot. And so we need to protect them and keep them in their homes. So I think it's very important.
Yes. Well, thank you, Mr. Drummond. And then we are interested in finding ways that the church and the city can work together for the betterment of the community. What thoughts do you have, or what ways do you think that we can work more closely together?
So I think the biggest issue we have right now is the homeless population.
Okay.
And I think you've been involved with those discussions, and I think that's something that we have to address, and I think it's going to require the churches, it's going to require the city, and which means that all of us will be involved in this, because ultimately someone has to pay for it.
Yes.
But we do have to do something about housing for these folks. I mean, they have to live somewhere. Everyone has to be somewhere.
Right.
And so.
Yeah, we shared with Mr. Rydell earlier that many times the church would like to help, but don't know how. What are the steps and what process? How do we get involved to helping individuals and families at times? Because you see the problem on the surface, but there is a deeper issue behind it that we can't see. So I think the key to that is finding out what is the issue behind what we see, taking care of the root issue.
Usually that comes down to mental health and substance abuse. And that's the problem we've got. A lot of folks that are out there on the street, they're not ready to give up some of that, or they're not ready to accept help. And so it's really hard. I don't know how you handle that. I mean, that's something we need to talk about.
Yes.
I mean, because you just can't leave them out there. I mean,
Right.
as like during the freeze here a few months ago, we took a bunch of those and we housed them for a week or so to get them off the street.
Right.
So, but we need to do something permanent. And so I hope we've talked about some housing options down in South Taylor and down in Dolan, and I think that's a good start. One of my concerns is the lack of transportation, and so that's something else that we have to address here is public transportation. But you were asking how the church could be involved,
Yes.
and I think that's the primary issue. And there's lots of other opportunities, not necessarily with the city, but with other nonprofits. Meals on Wheels is something that I've been doing, and I really enjoy Meals on Wheels. I've met lots of great folks, and look forward to seeing them, every day.
Yeah.
Boys and Girls Club is going to be looking for volunteers this summer, and they need like 20 or 30 volunteers, and they've got the summer program full day, full time. So they're going to be looking for help, and so there's lots of options out there. They've got nonprofit get together on 7th Street campus this Saturday. I think it's Saturday afternoon.
Okay.
All the nonprofits will be out there, and you can go out there and you can sign up or talk to the folks and see what you want to be involved with. And I think that'd be a good opportunity.
Well, thank you for letting us know. We didn't know that.
I would like to be there,
Saturday.
but we've got this wedding going
I
on.
know.
I think he really, that's great because the church is interested in how we can help. We want to help. We know there's issues and problems. We want to help, but we don't know how. And you gave us some good steps of not only helping monetarily, because that's one way.
That's the easy way.
Yeah, that is. It's easy to throw money, yes.
Getting your hands dirty, spending your time, and how church members can help out with that. And of any church, not just our church, but any church in Taylor. So, because, we do participate in Shepherd's Heart mission and things like that here in Taylor, but it's good to hear that there are other opportunities and that the city has plans for other opportunities for us to help. So we appreciate you sharing that.
At the start of the pandemic, I felt like I needed to be involved in something.
Yeah.
And I looked around and said, where could I make the biggest impact on our community? And one was certainly feeding our seniors. But the other one, I was thinking, if you can reach children when they're young and give them the stuff they need to develop as tax-paying, productive individuals in the community, and how do you do that? Well, that's nurture, but maybe they don't get all of that at home or at school.
Yes.
But the Boys and Girls Club, this is what they do. They have lots of programs for these kids. These kids are busy the whole time they're there doing stuff. There's lots of games, but there's also lots of learning. And I think this is a really good program, and we really need to get behind it.
So for someone that may not be familiar with the Boys and Girls Club, can you say a little more on who qualifies?
Yes. I think kindergarten to seniors can qualify.
Okay.
The Taylor school boards, Taylor ISD, actually they deliver the students to the campus. We're at the old Northside School, which still belongs to Taylor ISD, and they are allowing us to use that for this program. And so we're really thankful for that. And that's a blessing. So the buses drop them off in the afternoon, and they spend the afternoons there. During the summer, the parents can drop them off in the morning, they'll spend all day.
Okay.
But, we feed them, and we watch over them, and there's field trips, and it's a really good program.
How many kids would you say are involved?
Right now, I think we've got, the COVID has kind of, blocked us a lot. We've got almost 100 daily.
Wow.
And then I think this summer I think we've got 115 signed up, and I think our max is like 150.
Okay.
So that's a lot of youth that's up there in one place.
And a lot of volunteers.
We're going to need a lot of volunteers. Yes,
Absolutely.
that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
And we're going to need funds. I mean, the price for this right now it's free because of the COVID. We've got enough grants to cover it. But there is the students, the parents, they pay $20 a year normally to cover these students.
Okay.
And there is an activity fee of $10 or $15 a month. But the rest of that is we looked at the community. And so we're going to have some fundraisers coming up later this year. But we need the community to help fund this, to take care of these kids. These kids are our future.
Yes.
And we have to take care of them.
That's right.
So I think it's a really good program. I think it's something we really need to get behind.
Yeah, that sounds like a good need for Taylor. You know, I used to work in corporate preschools, and we did after-school care. And man, I mean, a family with 2 or 3 kids in the summertime, they'd go broke.
Sure.
I mean, I don't know how families. I worked in child care, so I could bring my kids with me.
Well, you know,
and it's so it's so expensive.
Right.
So
And-
that's wonderful that Taylor offers it.
well, and the alternative to that is the kids get out of school at 2 o'clock.
And they're unsupervised.
They're unsupervised for hours,
Yes.
yes.
Uh-huh.
And so the Boys and Girls Club
And
provides
we provide,
a way.
we help with homework,
Okay.
yeah, things like that.
For
Yeah.
working families that.
Yeah. Oh, it's great, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's excellent. Well, thank you, Mr. Drummond. Do you have any last words for the people of Taylor that you would like to share?
Things are getting better.
Things are
We're
getting better.
We're gonna get through this COVID and things are gonna get better. We're gonna open back up. Business is gonna boom and Taylor is gonna do really well in years to come.
Yes,
And I'm very excited about where the direction we're headed.
yes.
I feel like it already is.
I know,
getting
it
better.
already has been improving daily. We can see it.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, well, we want to thank Mr. Drummond for being our guest tonight or today with our Saturday night church. We know that he's very busy with his schedule, but we very much appreciate your time. So thank you again for coming on with our Saturday
Well,
night church.
thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this glorious opportunity, and we thank you for this wonderful city of Taylor. We thank you for Mitch Drummond, Lord. We thank you for his service to Taylor and the community. We thank you for upbringing him in the church so that he has a heart to serve others, be a good shepherd, and serve the community. Lord, we pray that you keep his hand on him and guide him, and keep your hand on the city of Taylor, Lord. We thank you for all these things. In your holy name we pray.
Amen. Again, it's me, Sela, again, and we're continuing on our conversation, and we have Matt Rector, and many of you know here in Taylor, he is on the ballot running to represent District 3 here in Taylor. We want to give an opportunity to Matt to tell us about himself and to tell us about how the faith tradition growing up.
So, what I like to tell people is I was raised Cuban because when I was little, my parents stopped going to church, so I didn't grow up in the church. In middle school, I started attending a Baptist church, mostly for girls. Just gonna be honest. Started going to a Baptist church, and it just kind of drew me in. I got heavily involved. And part of it was probably because my grandmother was a praying grandmother, and she was always like, you will be in the church, I know you will, I'm praying for it. And I had an aunt and uncle that were the same way, and they were always praying for me, and I didn't know it, but they like to say that their prayers brought me into the church. And so from middle school all the way through high school, I attended a Baptist church, and then in the Marine Corps, that's where I met my wife, and we got married. She was raised UPC, and so
Tell us what UPC is.
United Pentecostal.
Okay.
So she was raised United Pentecostal, and we've kind of evolved over time because there were aspects of the Baptist church that I really missed.
Yeah.
There are aspects of the Pentecostal church that we really like, and so we kind of evolved into more of a non-denominational type church. And we did 3 years in Japan, and we started attending a Calvary church over there, which is a non-denominational. And it's literally all they did was teach the Bible. So you show up on Sunday morning, you have some music, and we're going to go book by book, verse by verse through the Bible, and we're just going to talk about what it means.
Yeah.
And so I really enjoy that kind of thing, because in the Baptist church it seemed like they were really big on just teaching the Bible. And so that's kind of my faith evolution, I guess. There's not a particular church that we attend regularly. We're still, I guess, searching for that place that we really fit. We'll find out. So that's kind of how we
You
are.
should visit us at First United Methodist Church on Sunday
Yes,
morning.
that's right. And there are a lot of different options here in Taylor. church. Tell us, if you were elected to represent District 3, you will become a shepherd, not only for that district, but for the people of Taylor. How can you be a good shepherd to the people of Taylor?
So, I mean, when you think about a good shepherd, you think about how they took care of their flock. Right?
Yes.
And so, the bits and pieces that I know, I've never been a shepherd. I've never dealt with sheep.
Not a real shepherd.
Right, not a real shepherd with real sheep, no.
Yeah.
But I mean, you hear the stories about how they would stand watch and they would protect the sheep, and they would keep them all huddled together, and they would stand guard of them. And you think of David, and when he had to attack the bear and attack the lion, to protect his flock.
Right.
And so, I like to believe that would be me, that I would be the guy who would stand up and be the barrier between my flock and that danger.
Yes.
And part of that, I think, as a city official, it's not very likely that I'm going to have to fight off a bear or a tiger or a lion or something.
Well, they come in many forms.
They do. You're absolutely
The wolf
right.
comes in many disguises.
Right.
So, but I think part of being a good shepherd is understanding your flock.
Yeah.
Right? You can't. I've attended a lot of leadership trainings in the Marine Corps and with the Department of Defense and with all these other organizations. And one of the keys that they teach you is you have to understand your people, because you can't provide what they need if you don't understand their needs. And so that's one of the things that I have tried to do through this campaign is get out and talk to people, because it's easy for me to come in and say, this is what you need.
Yes.
But is it really what they need? And if it isn't what they need, is it what they even want? And so, and there is a level to that. You think of the 23rd Psalm, right? So let's say we understand what the people need, but it may not be what they want. And so you think of the 23rd Psalm, and it doesn't say that the Lord is my shepherd. He allows me to walk in the green pasture and be this. He says, He maketh me lie down in the green pasture. And so there's an aspect to being a shepherd where you have to say, okay, I understand that you want this thing over here, but as a shepherd, my job is to protect you from that. And so I'm going to say, we are going to go do this over here. And so part of it is talking to people, understanding them. Part of it is also understanding how the city works and how the city operates, and being able to reach out and partner with other organizations and talk, to these other groups, because we've got the county and we've got the state and we've got neighbors on each side of us that we have to talk to. So
Right.
I think that I'm an avid reader, I'm an avid researcher. I don't know the answers to everything. I've had people ask me, how will you deal with homelessness? I think we need to talk to other organizations. Which organizations? I don't know. That's not my area of expertise. I'm an engineer. I deal with roads and water and wastewater. And so, but I'm also keen enough to know that if I do enough research, I can find those answers and I can find those organizations for the department. So I think that's part of it, is being willing to put yourself out there into uncomfortable situations and say, I don't know the answer, but I'm going to do it.
Right. As a shepherd, for me, being a pastor of the church, is to provide a vision for where are we going. This is where we are. This is where we've been. But where are we going as a group, as a community? So, what is your vision for Taylor and its people?
Well, so, I mean, obviously, if anybody who's been paying attention to my stuff during this campaign, infrastructure is near and dear to my heart. Engineer by training, I'm a public works director, a former public works director, so that's the thing. So I want us to get back to the basics. Everybody talks about growth. Growth is great, and I've said many times, you have to have growth in the city. You cannot support a city without growth. But growth, when you're not prepared for it, when you don't have the foundation to support it, can be more of a detriment than it can be a blessing. And so my vision is for Taylor to fix those basic things and to stand up and be a leader in this county, in this Central Texas region, and in Texas as a whole. Because, I'm relatively new to Taylor. I hear a lot of people comparing us to, we're going to be like fill in the blank. And you can pick whatever city you want, because I'm sure somebody in this town has said, we're going to be like whatever. I don't want to be like anybody. Yes, I think we should look at them and compare ourselves and say, are we headed in the right direction? But I want Taylor to be Taylor.
Right.
And I want people to be going, you should be like Taylor. I want people in town not to go, man, go to Taylor and check out what they're doing, because they're doing something different. They're doing something right. We need to do what they're doing. I want people in San Antonio to say, hey, let's go check out what Taylor's got going on, because whatever it is, it's working.
Yes.
And so that's my vision, is for us to stand up and not say, we're good enough, and we're going to be like so-and-so, or we're going to be like this one over here, but to say, no. We are going to stand up, and we are going to be Taylor, and everybody's going to be lining up to be like us.
That's interesting when you say you want other cities to look at Taylor as a model for what they want to be. That's kind of how the church can be. We want other churches to say, hey, look at this church, they're doing great things. But we want to also work together, all the churches of Taylor together. So we want to know, yes, for the city, with the city in a partnership. So we want to know how the churches, along with the city, how can we help serve the city and serve the needs of the community?
Yeah, so before I get into that, let me just say it's so nice to hear a church say we want to come together with other churches. I've been in other cities and I've been in other towns where the churches, the Bible says that the church is the body, right?
Yes.
We are the body. And when you look at your body, not every single part serves the same function.
That's right.
They are all different, but they are all just as important as any other. I mean, it's going to sound really weird. Your pinky toe is just as important as your pointer finger. And so it's very refreshing to hear that. The ways that the churches can work with the city. So, one of the things that I mentioned is people have talked to me about how you're going to deal with the homeless situation. Well, and my answer to them is the city by itself is not equipped to deal with the homeless situation. Do we have things that we can do? Yes, we do. Are they going to be effective? Probably not. And they're probably just going to be a cycle that we're constantly repeating, and it's just going to be a burden. Whereas other organizations, the church especially, they have the ability to reach out and do things that the city just can't do. And not every church has this one specific thing. Like, let's say you don't have a counselor, a licensed professional counselor in your church. I understand that pastors and reverends, they act as counselors, but for sometimes I've got pastor friends, and sometimes they say, for this situation, I need a professional. And so they bring a professional in to talk to them. And so the church can do those things, but outside of the homeless stuff, I think there are other things that the churches can do that the city just can't by itself. Like you look at what we've just gone through, this pandemic, right? And so you've got kids who are now stuck at home. They can't be with their friends. They need social outings. But where are they going to go, and what are they going to do? You've got parents who are stressed out because their kids can't go anywhere, and the parents need social getaways. They need time away from their kids. There are things that the churches can do to organize outings and gatherings and small group settings and things like this to create that community that the city can't do. I can't go to somebody's house and say, hey, you need to create a small group to go talk to this group. No, but the church can do that. Yeah. And I think there are people in the church who would not only be okay with that, but they would want to step up and say, yes, I want to open my house. I want to have people come in and I I want to facilitate that. And so, you know, I kind of think of the church as, and this is going to sound really bad when I say it, but just give me a second. I kind of think of church as the Walmart supercenter of community organizations. Because, I mean, a small local church may not have unlimited resources, but they have access to unlimited resources, right? And they have a network that they can reach out to. The city is on its own. I mean, you know, we can reach out to the county and the state and whoever, but for the most part, we're on our own and we can't really do this. And so we need your unlimited resources to come alongside us and help us do these things. You know, I was out at the Old Taylor High School stuff this weekend, and I just stood there and watched as all these people are out there tossing beanbags, playing cornhole, and they were all laughing and having a good time, and you wouldn't know that we just came out of a pandemic.
Yes. We're still in a pandemic. Yes.
Okay, we haven't come out yet, but we're coming out.
We are, yes, we are.
Yes.
It's through the rainbow. We can see the light.
And so, but I was watching that, and I just stood there and watched and just kind of soaked it all in. And I said, this is what we need. We need more of these community events to ease people out of their isolation and recreate that feeling of community and decrease that level of stress and just fear and anxiety that everybody has been under for the past year. And I think, what better group than the church? I mean, the church is all about hope and unity and faith and coming together. And I mean, there's nobody better. And so I think those are the kind of things. Yes, there's all the typical things, you know, let's have the church help feed the homeless and shelter the homeless and all those kind of things. And those are great. I'm not saying not to do those. I'm just saying let's take it a step farther and think outside of the typical box that we put churches in. And let's let the church be creative and say, hey, let's go do this. Let's create this. You know, I was thinking about it on my way over here. Why do we have to put the churches in a box and say, okay, can you create this charity and feed this group, or can you do this? I mean, one of the other things that I thought about, and this is something that's near and dear to my heart, is a lot of people struggle financially. Not necessarily because they don't have money, but because nobody's ever taught them about money. And I'm like, you know, I've sat in churches where they have Crown Financial and other programs, Dave Ramsey, to teach you about how to function with money. And so I'm like, that's not something the city's going to do, but it's something that people need and those type of things. So why couldn't the churches come together and figure out, hey, let's do this thing over here or that over there, let's do this social event, or let's do this type of counseling, or let's do this type of education. And so I think if we all work together to figure out what the community needs and find ways to reach those needs and figure out who's the best to reach those needs, because in today's day it seems like everybody wants everything from the government.
Well,
and that's not what the government's for.
Has been handing out money.
Exactly.
But how can we rechannel something like that to go to the people who actually needs it?
Right.
In many ways, you know, the homeless, the hungry, people who are struggling with life in general, whether it's a financial, whether it's a mental issue, or whatever the case may be. You know, that is the mission of all churches, to get out there, share that love of Christ. We are the hands and feet of Jesus out in the community, but especially where we live.
I want to thank you guys for the opportunity.
Before we end this, may I pray for you? Gracious and loving God, we give you thanks for that. We give you thanks, God, that He is willing to be a servant of yours and to be a servant of the city and serving the people of Taylor. We pray, God, that you continue to bless him and that you bless his family and that you continue to bless the city of Taylor. For this we pray in Jesus Christ's name, amen. All right, well,